and welcome to a Patreon watch-along of Cabin in the Woods. This is me giving my take of one of my favorite horror movies, certainly my favorite modern horror movie. To me, this is the beautiful spiritual sequel to Scream, which is my favorite of the 90s classic when I grew up horror movies, and I love this movie very, very much, so I'm really excited to dive in. This is for patrons Michael McCarstle and Ash Singh, and one day I'll learn to mute this, but I'm learning all of this stuff as we go along. So Michael McCarstle and Ash Singh are the patrons that sponsor these Magic Watch-Alongs. I'm very excited for this one. It being Halloween season, Halloweek even. It is mere hours from Halloween. I'm very excited to dive into something that is as far into horror as I tend to go. We did an Overlord commentary review of mine this week. I dropped it actually just earlier today, and that was for John Getz, who also wanted to get me in the spooky season. So we're doing a bunch of spooky coverage for Halloweek. I'm very excited to be diving in. So I have got this to 0-0. I'm going to press play in just a moment. With the Logan one, I did not think to go to 0-0, and right before this aired, someone was kind enough, David Taylor was kind enough to say, like, hey, 0-0. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense for the watching along. So currently at 0-0, I'm going to press play, and that's where we're going to launch from the viewing experience. I do believe this is on Hulu. I own it. I'm watching it on Blu-ray, but I made sure there weren't a multitude of editions. So this is how I'm watching it, because I believe in physical media, but it is streaming on one of the services that are common, so you can watch along with me. I've stalled a few moments hoping that if you just tuned in, you can run and catch up and press play. So I'm done stalling for people that are watching this in the future. If you're watching this more than a week in the future, I hope things are going well. All right, I will be pressing play in 5, 4, oh, wait, I'm about to. This episode, usually we have craft beer, and I have this deal with Tavour where if you use the code COYJ10, you get $10 off after you spend $25. It's either COYJ10 or COY10. It'll be in the description here, but whatever amount of letters fit, I think it might actually just be COY10. You get $10 off after you spend $25 on craft beer, but I'm out of craft beer, so tonight I'm drinking a special Koi drink. It looks gross because it's like milky, but not quite. It is chocolate milk and whiskey, and it's one of my favorites. So I'm watching one of my favorite horror movies while drinking one of my favorite drinks. Chocolate, cashew milk, and whiskey is delicious with 4 cubes of ice, but they're little baby cubes, so it's probably about 1 cube. Okay, I'm done stalling. Let's watch this movie in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, play. Okay, it is moving. We're going past 0-0. We got gears. We're at the gear portion. I believe is that Village Roadshow? No, is that Lionsgate? Oh yeah, the gate. I think it's going to be Lionsgate. And if memory serves, Lionsgate picked this up after it sat on a shelf for a very long time, and I'm so glad they did. If memory also serves, Lionsgate said to Joss and Drew how good the movie was and reinvigorated them to get this movie out because it sat on a shelf so long they apparently had given up hope. So I'm very appreciative that we got this movie thanks to Lionsgate, seeing it, believing in it, and then making it happen because this movie is straight up magic. Michael McCarstle sends his best. He could not make the live. He is working on a haunted house as we speak, which is very fitting. So he sent in a Streamlabs earlier saying, I've said that I can't watch live with you guys. I hope everyone has a great time. Hell yeah, Michael McCarstle, good man. So this opening salvo of the mythology and the setup of horror and story, and then the jump cut to enjoy a cup of fresh coffee is the tone of the film. It's perfect. Bradley Whitford playing very much the Bradley Whitford type, but in a new, it's perfect. It's perfect. Apparently the studio was afraid that people would walk out of the movie thinking they were in the wrong film, so they inserted the opening title scroll being horror and having then the Joss Whedon, Drew Goddard joke opening, which is what they wanted, which is right here, and I think it's perfect. AZ Badfish, good taste. This is one of AZ Badfish's favorites as well. And apparently, and this happens, a lot with writers when they insert characters that are kind of outside of universe. These are supposed to be a bit of a commentary on Drew and Joss, respectively. I'm guessing Richard Jenkins is Josh and Bradley is Drew, but I can't be sure. I also just finished The West Wing for the first time, and Bradley Whitford is a genius. I ran into him on New Year's, and I thought immediately of Cabin in the Woods, and I wish I had seen West Wing at that point. But he was an absolute gentleman, and I really respect his work, and I love him in this. The betting pool has come up a lot in 2020, which one of the reasons I thought this would be the perfect 2020 horror movie to watch. How many times we've seen the meme of what's coming next per month. And frankly, we're only 2 days from the next month. So what will November be for the grab bag of the wall? That is what comment I would like you to leave. So leave a comment, let me know what you think will be November's mystery madness of 2020. That scream scared the crap out of me in theaters because I was so in the mundane zone of great dialogue. Now, what I really like about this movie is as we assemble this cast, we basically have the Scooby-Doo of modern day. Like, we've got Daphne, we've got, Shaggy with Fran, we've got Fred with Chris Hemsworth. It's this beautiful Scooby-Doo, but I'm very, very excited. And of course, the play on cliche is really rad, and the commentary on the stereotype, like what they need to be. This setting up, of course, the big reveal as we develop into the movie with the virgin horror commentary, which is very traditional. Again, this is a great spiritual sequel to the Scream franchise because it adds a twist on top of the Scream twist, and all of these all of these horror tropes are integral to this movie. One of the favorite things that I saw looking this movie up was there's a bunch of reviews that say like, oh, too cliche, and I'm like, that's the movie. They're like, too many horror cliches, and I was like, did you get the ending or the third act at all? And it's my favorite that some people still don't get it, even though it's clearly spelled out as the movie develops. Now, Chris Hemsworth booked this immediately upon landing in America, and then MGM saw the dailies and gave him the Red Dawn. He did Red Dawn off of the dailies of this movie, and then within 2 days got Thor. So this movie, suddenly 3 giant. That is a reference to the 1983 drug PSA that's referenced in a lot of films. I learned it from you! But yeah, this is Chris Hemsworth before he was huge. And there's some reshoots later in the film where his neck has actually grown because he's been cast as Thor and he's already started the training, which is so rad. But Chris Hemsworth going from this to Red Dawn to Thor over the course of a couple months at most. I mean, it could have been as little as a few weeks because dailies and then 2 days later Thor, it all happened so fast, which is insane. That is not how it usually works, but good for him. In the chat, Jimmy Comer, off topic a bit, but I'm getting a Why the Last Man tattoo of the logo for Christmas. Love this movie and keep up the great work. Congratulations, enjoyed that tattoo, good sure. Shaggy himself, Fran Kranz with the entrance. We've also got AJ Lancaster in the chat. Good man, welcome AJ. And Friedrich Films, best movie 2011, totally agree. And Kino put, it's genius. Now, Fran Kranz is a genius. He's a great writer, director, actor. He's doing a bunch of other stuff. And he's also, shredded. So, dude had to wear baggy clothes and layers so he could play the stoner guy. But he's actually a very, intellectual, focused, driven man, which is fascinating to see this. And apparently that bong does function. Does exist, and is $5,000. For a low-budget film, a $5,000 bong, quite the budget, but memorable. Look at that. Look at that beauty. I don't even smoke weed, and I respect that. I wish there was the equivalent of that. Well, there is the equivalent of that for drinking. It's everything, but I respect it. All right, so in keeping with my Scooby-Doo analogy, we even have the mystery machine of the RV. I love that it leans into all the cliches, and then I saw this before the hype really started because I saw a Thursday screening like right before the midnight, and it just wowed us because all the cliches are fun, but we didn't expect that twist on the twist, and you wonder what the hell's going on from minute 4. Also fun that you modernize with GPS, that you modernize with what the new world is. Like Scream didn't have the phone issues of modern tech, and this, they're having to acknowledge it right away. I'm really excited to see how we address the post-COVID horror, because there's going to be 82 horror movies about COVID as soon as the world's open. But I like that this is a modernized take on that meta comedy. Some would argue that's what's happening now, Fran Kranz. Society crumbling and us figuring out what's necessary. It's also insane to think that this movie's almost 10 years old. My hair is having a time. Even the supporting cast, like, you're immediately endeared to this guy. He's the military, like, stuck-up character actor. But as the story develops, we get to meet him more and more. But you're immediately endeared to him, and that's really impressive casting. Because this kind of movie, you need stereotypes, you need cliches, and you need to build on that. I love the gas station horror trope. It's near and dear to my heart, and I feel like the '80s, my era of growing up watching horror too young, the gas station was a fixture, at least in memory. So I'm watching a picture-in-a-picture take on this, so I can give you guys extra information. And while this scene is happening, Drew Goddard's talking about casting Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford and saying how Richard Jenkins added an integrity and an Oscar-ness because he got nominated for an Oscar right before taking this. And then Bradley Whitford can handle pages and pages of dialogue and make it effortless, which is essential for a script like this and that West Wing training. This is apparently someone's home, this set, and someone lives there, so they put up the gas pump, but this was a home that they modified, but people live here, this set, which is insane. So apparently they built one wall to make the storefront a unit, but then the rest of the house they were living in while they were filming this. Imagine looking for a gas station, finding the perfect house, and then having to modify it into a gas station. But the set dressing's already there. You're talking low budget. You throw this guy in front of that place. Terrifying. Fran Kranz, he also did incredible work in Much Ado About Nothing, but Fran Kranz is so impossibly funny, quick, specific, and from the opening of this film, goddamn. So I love the idea of a gatekeeper into this other realm. Obviously, this is going to be spoilers for the entirety of the film, but the threshold you need to cross, it's smart to have a gatekeeper, kind of like the boatman on the river Styx, and that is what the gas station man represents. That's also a placeholder for the ever watchful eye of the people that are going to appease the gods. And this being, of course, the final threshold. It's so cool. Probably one of the most expensive shots in the movie is a CGI bird as compared to the meager budget. I think the budget on this was very small. For the cast now and the caliber of film it is, small budget. I think it was $30 million. Yeah, $30 million, and it made 42 domestic, and it made 70 worldwide. So it did exceedingly well, especially for the budget, especially for a company that went under, MGM went under, and this movie sat on a shelf for years. So it's very impressive. This came out when Thor did, and he had done other films and then getting it out there. Psst, Spidey. I love the Evil Dead flavored cabin. I love that this is kind of what everyone pictures as a crappy, creepy cabin. But it's almost like, since it's so simple, you insert your own memories and connotations to it, and that's also part of the plot. Flaming Fandroid is saying this movie actually got him into horror movies, actually. If more horror movies were like this, I would be very much in that world. I love the ones that are, pieces thought-based instead of gore-based. I really dig this one, because there's plenty of gore, but it's so much more thought than gore. Hey, AJ, the hooks always remind him to get tetanus shots. Good call. And Fran is great in Dollhouse. I have not seen Dollhouse, but everything I have seen this man in, I have enjoyed. So right now the production designer's talking about how symmetry is inherently creepy. So even though the outside looks one way, trying to always center things and trying to make the symmetry, because it's unnerving. Nothing in life is generally that symmetrical. They also place the trees very specifically outside. They're a little too specific, so there's a synthetic nature to it, but you don't notice it upon first view. You watch it later on. So the smoke, when it billows out, it's very plotted, and it would look like it's a bad movie and it's set up poorly, but in fact, when you know the twist, you realize all of that's very intentional. But the use of synthetic subconscious ties into the twist beautifully from the beginning of the film. So now Kristen Connolly, who plays the lovely, I'm so bad at names, that's why I don't schmo down. Kristen Connolly, who plays the lovely Dana, auditioned in New York, and then auditioned on tape, and then auditioned in LA, and then finally got it after months of searching around the country for the actress. Every line of dialogue he has is perfect. So now they're talking about how Holden basically wanted to be the brain as it developed, but you don't want the jock and the brain to conflict, so you earn that character type. And I think that's really smart, because Holden becomes kind of the Velma of the movie, if we're staying on my Scooby-Doo stereotype, and you wouldn't expect the jock to also be the Velma, and Jesse Williams plays it perfectly, and I think he's a super talented actor, and he's great in this. Remember high school, remember being awkward. It's pretty great. And they were talking about the casting earlier. None of this works without a perfect cast. This movie is very much weighted on our 7 leads, the 5 people in the house, and then Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins. Obviously, Whitford and Jenkins, Oscar talent, but finding these 5 relative unknowns. I also love Jesse Williams knowing the other side of the board and using this to his advantage. I always thought that was very clever writing. So he knows, she knows, and they both know what this is, and funny. And that painting, man. Ugh. One of the things I did like about Velvet Buzzsaw was the paintings were really horrific. The movie didn't quite land, but I reminded me of these paintings from this movie. AZ Badfish asks, how many signs do you need to not stay? That's the magic of this movie, is all the cliches work very intentionally. Because I imagine they're already being fed lots of chemicals to get them to stay. Now this is interesting. These aren't green screen because they couldn't afford it, so they actually had to synchronize all these monitors, and they said that was one of the hardest things of the entire production to do, was get all of these monitors to be on at once, in sync and functioning, and it was one of their biggest triumphs. So this was based off of the idea of Los Alamos, New Mexico, where Drew Goddard's from, and basically there is a nuclear testing ground. So there's scientists walking around living day-to-day lives while the stake of the world is at their fingertips. So these are kind of the people that Drew Goddard existed around and exemplified in a film, is basically trying to normalize the end of the world. I love that no one wants to talk to Mordecai. Like, Mordecai as a character is so important and so good. That guy who plays him, Tim DeZarn, is an artist, man. So apparently the very first day of filming was the Mordecai gas station sequence, which is Drew Goddard's directorial debut. So his first ever day of directing was at that gas station, and there was snow, and you guys didn't notice because he's a good director. But I love the difficulty of diving into a movie like this as your directorial debut. I also love this entire sequence of Mordecai trying to warn them and them just laughing it off because he's such a weird dude, and this literally is the third act. Even the muscle laughing. I also dig that all of the tech is like Cold War tech, which is, again, that nuclear New Mexico like that, but it also gives the movie an infinite timelessness. The way this is set, this could be in 2030 or it could be 1980. The cell phone throws that off, but like the actual tech of it is timeless, which is rad. Look at pre-Thor Hemsworth. I mean, he's still jacked, but he's not yet a god of thunder. But his neck is starting to be thunderous. He's getting them gains. So one of the big problems they had was the lake is essential for horror movie tropes, especially a cabin in the woods, and all of the lakes they could find were iced over. So another issue of the filming was waiting for spring, shooting the lake much later, and that's why Hemsworth's so much bigger, because they filmed it way later, so he had gained that mass. But yeah, it making movies. Because they shot this in Vancouver, by the way. I should have mentioned that before. Sorry. Vancouver, not the best place to go in lakes before July. I highly recommend anyone that owns the Blu-ray watch the picture-in-a-picture version where the directors and the actors all do behind the scenes throughout the film, because they just said that while they were filming the lake scene, Fran went into the woods to pee and there was a bear, so he had to run out into the scene with a bear, not chasing him, but right behind him. And I wouldn't have known that without the picture-in-a-picture commentary, and now you know that. First mention of the director, who is one of my favorite surprise cameos, especially in this kind of budget. But when you're friends with Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard, you get certain actors. The gambling, the inherent folly of man, the human error of this whole situation is magic. Mythology, the system. I love that. They don't transgress, they don't get punished. So someone earlier, I think it was AZ Badfish, saying, why didn't they just leave? Like, it's human error on both parts. And one of the things I really dig about this is you've got these guys just doing their job. You've got our teen leads who are just trying not to die later, but now just trying to party. You've got the fate of the world as we develop. No one's the bad guy in this film, and I really dig that. The old gods arguably are the closest, but we don't really get to know them in time. So I love that no one's at the wrong here. And then cue the party montage. So they're having drugs and partying while the adults are gambling on their party. One of the things I think that makes this movie really work is even the Shaggy archetype played by Fran is intelligent. Chris Hemsworth is the jock, but he's also real and grounded. Jesse Williams is the brain, but he's also a jock. Like, everyone's got a certain level of intelligence, even like popular girl, popular boy. Everything about it is founded on some reality, which is why the twist works. This sequence is great. So this apparently took multiple takes of getting it right because the comedy of it very specific. The tongue is coated in sugar powder so as to make it more tolerable. So this is a acrylic and plastic and then sugar coated, and the results work. And apparently Joss Whedon got Avengers as they saw the Thor dailies coming in. So Hemsworth from this to Thor, movie got delayed. This finally comes out around Thor. Joss Whedon's about to work with him in Avengers, so he's calling Marvel to ask him how he's doing with Thor while already having worked with him, and LA's tiny. So messed up. So they're talking about how directing-wise, you want the realness first, and then you augment the fake. So they wanted her to be real and then add the blonde stupidity. And this scene was one of those that's really important to work because you need her to be grounded and real and then add the stereotype of the horror movie. Immediately calling out the infallibility, the fallibility of the logic is amazing, and him being stoned comes into play later with chemical, interactions. But watching it the second or third time, you notice details like that, and also her saying "dare" on that moment. Since it's a scripted thing, since there's people controlling it, those cues are able to be so tight. This is an hour and a half movie, and it's able to be punchy because it's being controlled literally by both the filmmakers and, in canon, the other people. So you'll notice the sides and the top are kind of just open-ended. It's kind of ambiguous. And that's, again, playing in the world of mythology. You can't see the edges of this. You don't know if that's a 300 square foot room or a 3-foot room. And that's very intentional for the mythology, which is awesome. Because theoretically, so much is stored down here to control where the movie's going. We don't actually see it all. And it's, God, all the details of this. So the only actual context to where you come from is the stairs, but once you're around that corner, this is all intentionally vague. So these are hundreds of references. This is Easter egg-tastic, and what I love is this is well before Marvel and Easter eggs became as popular as they are today, but this movie sets up infinite options for Easter eggs and every horror movie ever, in a way, being referenced. That's genius. And I love the lighting, the floorboards here. I love the blind scope. So everything they touch, you can imagine where that movie goes. So this is one of those movies where it's infinite options of what the next act could have been. And that's a good script when you don't know what the limits possibly were. And this was shot in limited time, but it was written in roughly 3 days. They wrote the lion's share of this in 1 week, and Drew Goddard and Joss locked themselves in a hotel as a challenge and wrote this. And all of these infinite options, if the ending hadn't happened, it shows this has been going on for hundreds of years, and every movie you've watched could be canon in this movie, and I love that. And also this ties beautifully into the third act's wall of options, and it gives us, like I said before, 100 references to other films, but it also, a lot of the dialogue lines reference the stuff in this sequence. This whole montage is so good. It's like an 80s training montage for horror. This is like my Rocky to Perry's horror. Like Perry Nemiroff's Rocky training montage is this sequence. And now they start to put things away that could have led other ways. So now you're imagining all the gambling and betting going on. Vegas, human error. So everything down to the merman is laid out here, and that's such a pausable scene. And this also strengthens their character types, like Chris Hemsworth, this is a dirty, possibly horrific story. I want to hear more. Frank Kranz being done, and never read the Latin. Our voice of reason, Frank Kranz, hearing the reading. and now they have sinned, and now vengeance can be wrought, and now Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins make money. Brandon Christopher, I agree, this is one of the best movie concepts of all time. And AZ Badfish, her flashlight didn't do anything, but this lantern from the 1700s lit up the whole room because they're in control. So if this doesn't work, wouldn't you want them to go to the spooky lights the room. There's the board. There's the 2020 board for the first time. One of my favorite things on the 2020 board here is Kevin, which is a Sin City reference. And the idea was Kevin would be, what's his name? Elijah Wood from the movie Sin City, and it would just be someone that could murder and maim while looking innocent and adorable. So on the bottom left, Kevin rocks out as a Sin City reference, which makes my comic soul happy. And a lot of movies get prequels and sequels, and we're getting a Furiosa, movie. I would love that they reference the old world. They reference all these things. If there was ever a movie to get a prequel, I'd want it to be Cabin in the Woods. And I would be willing to sacrifice all logic to dive into that again to see the old gods and shaping this. And the worldwide, this shot too, I would love to see the Japanese Cabin in the Woods. I'd love to see all the Japanese horror tropes. And this implies that every culture's horrors come from their old gods and the continents of that. You could make a shared universe. I would love a Cabin in the Woods cinematic universe. Give me a CWCU, Cabin Woods cinematic universe. Give me it. TCTWCU. Rolls right off the tongue like DCEU. Give me this. I love that she's doing this in front of all of this just for him, but that's part of the thing for him is that he's like, that's mine to like this happiness, and it's so uncomfortable for everyone. But everyone had that friend, or I had that friend. A lot of us have that friend. Now, the DP of this shot Evil Dead 2, shot Scream, shot so many other things, so you get a classic horror director to shoot classic horror tropes, and it feels like his whole career led to this, and it's so brilliantly shot. I love the framing of this movie. It to me is like a comic book meets a horror film, because there's so many frames that are just so many heads in frame and so much talking, and then you just like, it's never stilted though. It flows so well, and good horror movies do. The Latin, by the way, translated is pain outlives the flesh, pain raises the flesh, pain ignites the spirit, and they were defined as a pain-loving family. So that is what the Latin translates to, in case none of you speak Latin. I don't. I looked it up on IMDb. And I love the setting up in the bus that anxiety is the foundation of how we get things done, and him being anxious is tossed away constantly. But then puppeteers, Pop-Tarts? You can't take the one guy that's actually right seriously because he's the high guy. So much good writing. Oh, here's the Latin. And now we find out Sports Boy is also Smart Boy. I also love that they're both clearly set up and they're very honest and open with each other, because that's like a good foundation of relationship. I think it's very cute. Also, Fran being the fifth wheel invalidates a lot of his opinions, which also, again, tight writing. Another! Years later, that would be what was said when tossing the stein, because he is Thor. I'm sure you got that joke. It was not a good joke, but I had to explain it anyway, just in case. The creepy old white dude staring, waiting for... But this is also how a lot of people watch horror movies, for that type of moment, so... Your basic human needs disgust me, cranks up the heat. I love that this movie sat on shelves, and I consider it the best modern horror film. 2011, that means it's this decade, or the one we just left. But I can't think of anything, and this is just my taste, my personal experience, I can't think of anything that has such an expansive world that's so entertaining while also being scary at points. Like, this is my exact kind of horror movie, and this almost didn't exist. AJ asks, every time they cut back to the shot with the wolf's head, I just wonder if it still has sugar on its tongue. Thanks, Coy. That's why I'm here, for the fun facts. We won't look at movies the same way again. So immediately making the stakes very relevant while in a moment of comedy, the balance of drama, comedy, and horror, pitch perfect. First time director. Apparently the director, Drew Goddard, first time director, was raised Catholic, so he was very uncomfortable filming sequences like this, so the cast made sure he was comfortable, but on set he was much more like the muscle than Bradley or Richard. Doss starting to accelerate on the left. So the moment that's about to happen with the garden shear was actually done practically with a trapdoor, because it's cheaper to do things practically generally. So her hand going out and then finding the mark. So there's an actual trapdoor in this sequence. Wait. And now the camera's pushing in tighter, and trapdoor, flip, there. Brilliant. So it's just out of frame, trapdoor, boop. So someone springs up on cue. That's so dope. So we're 44 minutes into the film, and that was our first bit of horror. Another reason I like this movie is it earns it. So you get everything horror fans want. You get your horror, you get your gore, you get your terror, but the writing's better. And then it cuts back to plot. And then also, I mean, it's kind of like Watchmen, the TV show, making me appreciate the comic I already enjoyed even more. Moments like that make me appreciate gratuitous horror movies a little more if it's in canon of appeasing the gods. That adds an element to it. So this movie is so good, it retroactively made me like other horror movies more. This sequence reminded me so much of Blade. I'm sure that wasn't what it was referencing. I'm sure there was something that predated Blade, but this made me think of Stephen Dorff from the end of the first Blade, which I'd credit for the entire Marvel universe we get now. So Joss Whedon, maybe, because he's also a founding member of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Fran doing the work. Drew Goddard's brother is the one that built that mechanism. He's talking right now. Like that, the wood and bronze and all that mechanism was his brother. Perfect part. And now remember, by the rules, an indiscretion has to happen, and these are good kids, but they're being controlled. I love single lines of dialogue that can undermine an entire thing, and you don't even see him. They don't cut away. They stay on the two shot that entire time. Perfect comedy. He's got a husband bulge. Man, I love this movie. Now it's a horror movie. It's a goddamn movie star. Yeah, it's not the move. She didn't know, but that's a good horror trope too. She didn't know. There's Jules. Oh, that's a very good prosthetic head. No. 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 It's a big dude. Small door. Incredible. improves all horror movies. And that's how it happens, Scooby-Doo, and in mythical horror worlds. Of course, he's the one that sees it. Drug him? No. Never stand near a window. I'm uncomfortable. We know what's going to happen. And in 2011, that's exactly what you'd think. And I was so afraid because of how good that last line was, we were going to lose him right there. Because that would have been a great last line, thankfully. Not the way it goes down. We got a couple comments. They're not loading in my YouTube for whatever reason, or they weren't. Let me see if they started to. Oh, now they are. Ivan Soto says, is Cabin in the Woods actually a beloved film? Is this the movie with Ryder Strong from Boy Meets World? No. That's Cabin Fever, my friend. This is Cabin in the Woods, a near-perfect film. Very little to do with Cabin Fever, except for the cabin. Not Ryder Strong. AZ Badfish, you gotta figure an operation like that would have a better tech. Actually, I think that's like the classic nuclear 70s thing. Like, all the tech's old. Like, it's an old cabin. Like, this is... I think that's part of the flavor, personally, the timelessness of it. I'm sure certain things have been updated, but not all of it. Ivan, watch the good movie, not the Cabin Fever one. Watch the Woods one. Cabin Fever's okay. This is exceptional. Oh, that was his last line. No! My parents are going to think I'm such a burnout. What's his last line? I thought we had Fran for longer. He's just so memorable. We lost Fran Kranz. Blade vibes. Also, like, the way the movie escalates, you forget that the first third has no horror elements except for the tropes, but it doesn't have any gore. The second act is just the Buckners almost, and it's not till the third act that it really escalates. Anyone that wants to make movies, screenwriters, directors, take note. Like, escalation is important, and it saves your budget, especially in cases like this. That's goddamn perfect writing. And that's how you triple your budget. Like, this was $30 million and it made 70. That's an impressive turnaround for a $30 million movie that sat on a shelf for half a decade. Also, AZ Badfish, how great is that all plot holes can be written out by it being in canon, right? So your question about tech, like, my immediate thought was like, well, in canon. So it's also a great element to retroactively work. Like, that light only going so far is in their control, but it also allows for budgetary cuts. So everything is... There are no rules because of how strong the rules are, which is smart. Man versus headphone hair. The battle rages. Oh! No! Jesse Williams! So many people get bear traps in horrible ways. Ah! Also, at this point, she's still not... She's no discretions. Oh. Do not like. She took one of them down. It's good. This is Friday the 13th vibes for me. Like Freddy Lives. I mean, Jason Lives. I think that was 8. Definite classic 80s. Why do they always put the weapon down? Ah, more great rules. They're so clever. Sorry if this whole commentary is just me yelling how happy I am the script is good. Stay together. Chris Hemsworth's got his game face back on. Apparently it was that speech he gave in the house and then the one that's coming up, those 2 sets of dailies that got him Red Dawn, which got him Thor, like the combination of this and Red Dawn and leading into Thor. But, I mean, those speeches, like, he's got such a presence. He is a movie star. But actors watching this, it is not common to get 1 job in a month, much less 3 jobs in a month, much less one that leads to a career or franchise that changes the world. Japan's Cabin in the Woods. I want this shared universe so bad. And I know very little about Japanese horror, but I know enough that this reflects enough movies I've seen that this is so funny. And again, that's great writing because you want it to be approachable and global and feel like you get the joke, not like, oh, I'm not getting that. And this is exactly it. Richard Jenkins yelling, fuck you at little children will never not be funny. Hey. They killed no children. 0. Spidey always thinks it's dinner time. Ivan, that's what's happening. He's eaten. And that's the first we've heard of the impending, like, what could happen if they fail to that level of stakes. It's been teased, but the old god rising again. The old god's rising again. Escalating stakes with the horror, also escalating stakes with the stakes themselves. Again, the first time they mentioned something like that. So now we're leading into the 3rd act. We're going to have to lose one more character, but also what is at stake? And you keep the 2 good kids, Jesse and Dana, and that's... This movie's the definition of chef's kiss for me. Now, I wonder if they had been killed by the tunnel blowing, if that would have counted as horror points for the old gods, if that blood would have counted. I doubt it would have. So that's an interesting question another movie can address in my theoretical Cabin in the Woods shared universe. Now, they showed the dirt bike twice earlier very intentionally, and I really liked that upon my second viewing. The hero shot. His John Wick moment. And the dialogue. But you gotta give it everything. That's the proper use of a fucking right there in that speech. That's how it's done. Emphasis. Never do dialogue zest. Such good 80s dialogue. And it's canon because there are no rules, because the rules are so good. All of this works. Between this and Star Trek, dude, movie star. And we have such hope in this movie. The music's swelling. There's such, like, what could possibly happen? And then we remember, oh, wait, the one CGI bird. And we lose Chris. No! And also, now we see the scope through a death, which is brilliant. Look, it just goes and goes and goes. I like the scope of this. Puppeteers. God, this movie's good. This was in my top 10 of the year it came out, and I think I give this movie an A+. Like, it's holds up, it's rewatchable, it's funny, it's action-packed, it's got something for everyone. Rewatchability is huge for me from how high the rating is. The acting is pitch perfect, the rules are well-founded, it's organic. Like, this is A+. This is a damn near perfect movie. Spidey's here. The stick together speech. Oh, I forgot about that. One of them's in the car as he was delivering the stick together moment. So now we got an underwater sequence, which is very expensive. It's bath time. So this was shot in a water tank where they had to cut the Rambler in half and push it in so it would be submerged enough. So you're framing it super close, you get the right elements in the shot because the Rambler wouldn't fit in the tank. Low budget filmmaking, you gotta think. The virgin's death's optional. So they've already won, but fuck. Bradley fucking Whitford. God damn. Emotional monologue, tequila, art. Now this is 100% a Camp Crystal Lake Friday the 13th set. Not literal, but reference. What a scary weapon. God damn. I love comedic dichotomies, and this shot is that. This is just like the party that every bad accounting firm has. Like, it's so amazing. So all this violence juxtaposed with like the lamest, chillest suit party. And the studio, I was going to say the suits, the studio apparently did not want this scene to be as prevalent. They wanted to like mainly focus on the fight, because in normal movies, that would be the point. Like, you're at the third act, you want to see that, but no, the point is the funny, the dichotomy, the separation of all this. So a 16-hour work day of shooting a fight that's only seen in frames in the background, that's choreographed for weeks, all of that, and then they are focused on this, and the studio wasn't having it, but it's so funny. With one look, we know that phone never rings. Yes, good use of yacht rock. I agree, AJ. Fran? Maybe that's why I thought he didn't bite it. Yeah, I think Fran comes back and he's the hero. I'd forgotten. This movie got me. You can't trick the stone man. He's aware he was being puppeteered. I think that's what happens. Great twist. Using the bong! And the hero shot juxtaposed with the final woman, is that what they call it in horror movies? The final girl, that shot. So now we're entering the third act, as we have to kill at least one more, preferably both of them. And now you have to up the stakes even more, because we already have the world at stake teased. We've already seen all of our guys die, so now you have to go. So smart. How else would you get through it? The grave's inspired. And you start to notice the symmetry of things, the set dressing, if you see it a little later. My favorite line. I remember I got out of this movie and this was when I was on Facebook. I wrote, yeah, I just remember that guy with the trowel. What have you been up to? Was my review, my entire encapsulation of the glory that is this movie and Fran Kranz. I love the stoner solves it all trope. Storyboarding this sequence must have been so much fun. This is such a feat of imagination. And the sound design of that splat is glorious. Don't stand in front of the window. Same trick, but it works. And now an entire studio gets to use all of their costumes they've had. The Willy Wonka elevator of no direction, so you're disoriented along with them, sideways, up, down. Great use. And what great opportunities for imagination for every character designer ever. Like, this would be the dream project to work on. You get to make blank all of the above. You get to shape any sort of mythology, and it's, you know, zombie versus Buckners and ghost versus ghoul, like the old gods. You can really play and make it your own. Give me a shared universe film, please. Prequel. Also, this would be a great haunted house ride. Just like sliding through the elevator and having stuff. You could do this in quarantine. You could be safe in your thing, and they could be in a quarantinable haunted house. They originally wanted to do a Left 4 Dead crossover, where Left 4 Dead was going to go to a cabin in the woods, and they were going to do a giant Left 4 Dead crossover with this. But then when MGM went under, the movie went to on the shelf, and then everything else fell apart. But Left 4 Dead was going to have a cabin in the woods crossover. Obviously a Hellraiser reference. And I also love that she figures it out. Like, they're the ones that sussed all this out, and I like that they get to know. This shot is magic. So there's a giant kitten in one of these. There's a one-eyed, one-horned flying purple people eater at one point. I've seen it once, and I forget where it is. But I used to love that song as a kid, so I noticed there is a one-eyed, one-horned flying purple people eater. I love all this exposition singing. All of these monitors, keep in mind, not green screen. Look at how many screens are in this. All this is live playback. If you've never been on a set, that is insane. So this is a rear projection screen being zoomed into, so you had to actually have that. Insane. So they're actually reacting to playback. So there's one room being filmed and one room being filmed actual, because you can't green screen it. You have to get these shots done. So all of these moments, I'm listening to the editor talking right now, all of this is organic acting. So they watch that stunt guy get taken down. The control room is all filming live. So there's a full week of filming where this is all playing live while they're reacting live. So all of the control room is practical. And that many screens just being on is hard. A familiar voice has entered the fray. I couldn't believe they got her. It's amazing. So you get Scream Queens, you got Legends, and you got Sigourney Weaver, who's all of the above. I love that. And there is something to be said about, like, this is, you know, those bullets were added later, but all of these things having to happen at once adds a certain element of acting. Like, there's something about the organic flavor of practical. All of these screens actually playing these things. Like, that actress is reacting to seeing things on screens instead of looking up and seeing green plastic over screens. All of these switches can actually be flipped. I love that. And how much fun is it to make a 70s Cold War set like this? So in Underworld Evolution, the craziness of the blood was 450 gallons. The Purge was 300 gallons. This film, 800 gallons of blood. So the same team made the blood for all three of those films. This has substantially more. This is 800 gallons of blood versus 450 and 3. Apparently it was so bloody that it actually changed the sewer water in Vancouver, and they got a call from the health department to make sure everything was copacetic, which is rad. Look at that shot. That's what 850 gallons of blood looks like. Practical. So they used a fire hose and fire hose blood on the walls. Oh, the Strangers reference. I love the Strangers. Strangers is another one of the rare horror movies I really dig. So third act goes completely insane, like full bananas. Every little flash reminds you of something that affects you, like Silent Hill nightmares, like so many things you've feared. I've seen so many movies that are like these shots, and I've not seen 1/100th of the horror movies someone like Perry or Haley has. So this capturing the aesthetic and doing it practically makes me so happy. So that means they would have filmed all those shots, put it in a VCR or DVD player, pressed play on all of these screens, and now the actors get to actually experience this every take, every shot. The clown on the left. And now you're like, well, this is karma, so you're rooting for our leads, obviously, to succeed, but knowing in the back of your mind they've been worried about something bigger happening. So who do you really want to win or lose? Obviously, we want Fran and Dana to survive because of how incredible they are. If they weren't incredible as actors, we would understand, but we obviously want them to live, even at the cost of the end of the film. 850 gallons of blood right there. So test screenings are really important, especially for a movie like this, and apparently the biggest moment from all of the test screenings is Bradley Whitford's fate, and it's a fine moment in cinema, and it's coming up here in a minute. And it's been set up since moment 10 of the film. I also love that the werewolf even looks better than a lot of like practical werewolves. Like they really know how to use $30 million here. That's not a lot of money for this. Which is a weird thing to say, but it's not. Death by Unicorn is still so funny. And so fucked. Because that's someone's nightmare from the old world. And like the scarecrows and stuff, they wouldn't have worked for a long plot point, but other characters we only see for a flash would. We could have had, well, actually, you know, you could have a full Scarecrow movie. I think Jeepers Creepers is great. When they were writing this, Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon both wanted to direct it, but they also thought about bringing in the Jeepers Creepers director. But then eventually, Joss thought that Drew should make it his directorial debut. But seeing the Scarecrows, like, I could see a Jeepers Creepers-esque movie in this universe. You could do this. There's so many pockets of this universe you could do. Bradley, no! And that's good storytelling. I would much rather have an Avengers movie where I want to see more off screen than when I see everything. I think the farm scene in Age of Ultron is one of the rare perfect scenes in that movie because you get to live here and there can be lots of chaos happening out there. This is the scene. This is the #1 rated scene from test audiences, and it's beautiful and it's ridiculous. It's so fucked up. Karma comes for Bradley Whitford. Oh, that line delivery is pitch perfect, and the blood out of the blowhole because the cleanup's awful. Oh, come on. Genius. Pure genius. Josh Lyman would be killed by a merman. Oh, well, it's a bit fitting, really. I forgot about that moment, too. And it makes sense she'd be running with a knife out. Like, this all works. Ominous. Oof. I want to see Fran Kranz in a big franchise. He'd be a good Speedball. Fran Kranz as Speedball would be rad. And I could see him also doing something awful and becoming Penance. He could handle both. Wouldn't happen for a while, but I could see him leading the New Warriors. I could see a Speedball. Kristen Connolly's great too. I want to see this whole cast just everywhere. I mean, Hemsworth's doing all right. Sigourney Weaver's working. So Chris Hemsworth is the jock, Fran Kranz is the fool, all of the archetypes of horror. A lot of horror movies have 5. It makes every horror movie better. The Virgin. And now they obviously put together because of the blood of the lost friends. Like, it's so smart. God damn. Again, drink every time I say it's so smart. Yes! The entrance. Drew Goddard said it was actually hard for him to work with Sigourney because he had to direct her instead of being like, what was Alien like? Like, he's a fan, and I love that. And Joss Whedon, of course, directed one of the worst Alien films, Alien Resurrection, so he'd worked with Sigourney. And just the fun of working with her on a good film. And they wanted to make this because they'd just come off movies that didn't do as well, Joss and Drew. So to have this victory lap after sitting on a shelf. there's so much gravitas and oomph to Sigourney, and she's so playful and fun at the same time. And the director's teased, and then it's Sigourney Weaver. She's the perfect big boss. And she's technically the person saving the world every year, so you need someone that you can buy as having to make the big sacrifices, but also be doing it for the right reasons-ish. So Joss is saying they wanted someone that had cred as a dramatic actor, someone that had credit in the drama and horror world, and there's a very specific list of those people, but the voice is also so essential, and yeah. And for a moment, you don't know. And it takes away the option, like, And there's so many moments I just don't see coming, even on repeat viewings, and the werewolf's one of them. What's worthy of taking out the director, though? Oh! Director's gone. They're alive. And that's it. That's how it goes. And like, how do you resolve a movie that, you know, has to either kill all of your leads or end the world and have any sort of closure, but it manages to walk that line and really does it. You care about them so much. True to character to the last moment, both of them. True to the dialogue of the film to the last moment. And this is that every action movie, bloodied, sitting, reminiscing on the end of the film. It covers so many tropes and doesn't feel hackneyed. Except some reviewers that didn't get the joke. And the mythology elements of it, like the old gods destroying us, that you could write that into, you know, the Ice Age, dinosaurs ending, you know, the next thing taking over. There's so much mythology you can play with there. And this feels like a joke on the budget. Like, I wish I could have seen that. That hand is worth it all. And then the classic rock over cheesy font. So good. That movie is incredible. Who is this? I know this band. I know the next lyric. Who is this? It's Nine Inch Nails. I just had to hear him say pigs because he lived in that house where he had pig in the wall because of the murders and all that jazz. Nine Inch Nails, also incredible band. Guys, this movie holds up. I had a great time watching it with you. It has a 7 out of 10 on IMDb. I think that is far too low. Go over there and rate it up. It has a 92% Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is fair, and it has a 72% Metacritic, which I think is also far too low. This movie for me is an A+. It is in the 95-ish. For me, this movie is pitch perfect. Came out in 2011 after sitting on the shelf for a number of years. It is a damn fine film. I had a blast rewatching it. If you somehow have gotten to the end without watching the movie itself, it is on Hulu. I just looked up where it was going to be. This movie also is one of the reasons we got Daredevil, because Drew Goddard is the guy that brought Daredevil to Netflix. So thank this for the Joss Whedon approach of bringing in. Joss works with a lot of the same people. Drew Goddard made Daredevil happen, so this movie was a step towards that. So not only did this give us Thor and Daredevil, it's also bitchin'. So if you follow me for my comic book content, this is a lot. All right. That is going to do it for Nine Inch Nails in my ears, and that's going to do it for Cabin in the Woods. That is going to do it for this watch-along. I would like to thank Michael McCarstle, who's going to watch this later. I'd like to thank Ash Singh, who has been a watch-along patron over my Patreon as well. Very much appreciated for you guys for sponsoring watch-alongs. I know right now, Michael McCarstle, as I'm recording this, is working at a haunted house, so he just has his own Cabin in the Woods experience, which there's something about a meta movie about haunted houses that murder for the old gods while the person that is watching this later because they were at a haunted house, there's something beautiful to that. So Michael, I hope you appreciated being at a haunted house while we watched this haunted house. Drew Goddard, Joss Whedon, all of this incredible cast, Fran Kranz for everything. Holy shit, what a movie. Also, Connolly for everything. She's a powerhouse. This movie is so very good. Jesse Williams put these people in movies. Also Bradley Whitford and Richard Jenkins. Like, what a cast. All right, that's going to do it for me. Thank you guys very much for tuning in. I had a really good time revisiting this. I forgot Fran Kranz came back. I was so enthralled with the movie. You guys got to see my I don't like horror face a couple times, and it's very, very funny. I'm going to check the Streamlabs and the chat one last time before we head out of here, so I want to make sure I didn't miss anything with you guys. I agree, Goddard did kill it with this one. AZ Badfish, love it, totally agree. Ivan Soto, yes, Murder by Unicorn is rough, and Death Star Kitty agrees. And Marcus McGregory is never going to Haunted House ever again. I don't know if any of us will in the scale we used to, but that's totally fair. All right, we are going to wrap this up. Thank you guys very, very much. Thank you for Michael McCarstle for kicking off this episode with a Streamlab. Thank you to Ash Singh for being a patron of this tier, and thank you to Spidey Cat for calming down enough that we were able to do the show. He got a little twitchy for food, but now, well, he's my precious boy. All right, gang, that was a pleasure. We'll see you on the next one Friday. Tomorrow we are doing Comic Books and Craft Beer, confirmed with Jenny today. We're doing Comic Books and Craft Beer, Volume 2 of Saga. We have no craft beer because I ran out of the Tavour craft beer. By the way, Koi 10 at Tavour gets you $10 off, $20 after you spend $25. That gets you $10 after that. So I might be a strong episode of like whiskey and stuff. And there's a big announcement for a new show that I'm doing coming at you either tomorrow or early next week. So lots and lots of stuff. Comic books and craft beer, big announcement. Koi Cubed on Tuesday, new Koi Cast on Wednesday. Shenanigans. Have a safe, happy, glorious Halloween. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow. Hiccups at the end of the movie. Hopefully I'll see you tomorrow for comic books and craft beer. But until then, I will see you very, very soon. You guys are appreciated. Bye. What do you mean, oh no, not again? What do you mean, man, not again? Go watch. It's easy. Simple. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.